Let's move on to Stage 3 drought update. Ms. Dyer, you're up again.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to be going through the status of the drought and our water demands, review our water supply strategy, and our water supply status. This is the most recent chart from the National Weather Service, and as you can see, our area still remains in a drought condition. We do expect that to continue. We don't expect any change in that until we see what happens with the rainy season this winter. We receive most of our rainfall January through March timeframe. So again, just a reminder that we are still in a drought. Our water demands, this shows our monthly tracking of our water demands. We had a 45% reduction in water use in September compared with our pre-drought demands. So still, community is exceeding our expectations in terms of conservation. And we've had 40% conservation as our 12-month running average. This is the chart showing our total water use going back to the 1980s. So this first dip here is the last major drought in our area. And here we are today. Our water use has actually just crossed the line where we're now using less than we were at the low point of the last drought in the 90s. And our water supply strategy has been updated. October 1st marked the beginning of a new water year. So now we are just starting the 7th year since Kachuma last spilled. And so what we've done is to extend our projections out one more year through 2020. And we've updated our water supplies for last year to reflect actual water use. And so last year, you can see this blue bar is Gibraltar that made up the majority of our water supply last year. So the spring rains of 2017 really helped us out in our water supply for this year. We also had 40% conservation for last year, which is why this white bar is larger than the rest. We continue to plan for 30% conservation target through the next 3 years, but we'll have to reassess that after the winter rains. So next spring was when we would reassess our supply strategy and our conservation target. Some other highlights are for state water, that's the orange bar. We're assuming a 45% allocation this year and then a 35% allocation the next 2 years. But our planning assumes that pipe will continue to be flowing at full. So if we get a less than 100% allocation, we'll have to assess whether we go out and pursue supplemental water purchases. Again, the timing of that would be next spring after we see what happens with the rains this winter. The yellow bar is our groundwater, so you can see we're not planning on using our groundwater this year. We shut down the wells last spring to rest the basins, and we do continue to exercise the wells as backup water supply if Kachuma water quality is too challenging to treat because of the Whittier fire. We would have our groundwater wells as a backup water supply. The projections assume no significant inflows to Gibraltar and Kachuma for the next 3 years as well. So water supply status, we have Gibraltar is currently at 48% of capacity at 2,500 acre feet. It stopped spilling in early May, and since then we have been maximizing our diversions up to our water rights, and the water quality remains good. And we are also planning to hold on to about 1,500 acre feet at Gibraltar as backup supply given the Whittier fire situation we're facing this winter. We would like to maintain flexibility in using Gibraltar if we need to. So Kachuma is currently at 41% of capacity at about 78,700 acre feet. The data reported on the Bureau's website is under review. They had a malfunction in their pressure transducer, so the lake elevation is being reviewed. It may change and be updated on the website. It may be more or less than what's reported right now. And so for now, they've held off on issuing our 40% allocation that was anticipated on October 1st, wanting to resolve those lake elevation issues. And so hopefully that gets resolved this month, and we will have our allocation before the end of the month. Not all water stored in Kachuma is project water, so we're a small piece of that 78,000 acre feet. We've included in our water resources managers report to Water Commission every month the chart that shows the breakdown of the different accounts of water, whether it be downstream water rights or fish accounts.
Who makes that chart?
The county has been making that chart.
So if the last item, the CCWA, takes over that contract, would they take over that role going forward?
No, the county has that role because they're the contractor for the Kachuma contract, which is different than the state water contract. So the previous item doesn't really affect their role on the Kachuma project. Downstream water rights releases are underway. They began in mid-August, and we expect they'll continue likely through November. The upside of that is that we don't have it counts towards our fish requirements, so we don't have to do additional releases of project water. But it is a substantial amount of water that's being released. Last I checked, it was about 10,000 acre feet, and it continues. Their goal is to recharge the groundwater basins in the Lompoc area, and as I understand, the water is reaching that point now. So probably in November is when I've heard they might shut down the releases. And as for the Whittier fire, I don't have any significant news on that. We have not yet heard on the funding for the Bureau of Reclamation. They submitted a grant to do some mitigation on the Bureau lands for the Whittier fire. So no news on that at this point. The county will be discussing this issue on November 3rd. So if you're interested in tuning into that.
A quick question regarding the downstream releases. You said they're trying to recharge the groundwater basin in Lompoc. Does that mean that some water levels as measured in Lompoc will be the trigger for shutting down the releases?
That's the decision is made by the Santa Ynez River Water Conservation District. So I would expect they have a number of decision factors, but and that they're monitoring water levels in the Lompoc Plain. But it's ultimately their decision on when they shut down the releases.
Thank you.
So the city's imported water, I don't have any significant change in status since last month. We have about 2,100 acre feet of imported water stored in Kachuma, and we have about 1,600 acre feet stored at San Luis Reservoir. We continue to bring down that water up to our pipeline capacity, given the risk of spill at San Luis next spring. San Luis is currently 100% full. So there is a high likelihood that any water would spill next spring. And if we continue to maximize our deliveries from the reservoir, we will have somewhere around 500 acre feet at risk of spill. So we've substantially reduced our risk compared to last year when we had about 4,000 acre feet in storage. We have returned about 2,900 acre feet of our debt owed to AVEC this year. We have approximately 3,300 acre feet of remaining water debt to be paid off in the next 10 years. And I guess just at the bottom of this slide, just a reminder that our current pipeline capacity for the city is about 280 acre feet per month. And those deliveries will shut down in November. The State Department of Water Resources does an annual shutdown for maintenance. This is a regular occurrence. So there's about a 2 to 3 week time frame when we won't be receiving water.
The water that's returned to AVEC, does that mean it is physically sent down to Antelope Valley, or is it just a matter of transferring accounts in San Luis?
The transfer occurs at San Luis, and then it physically would go to AVEC at that point. So it's physically delivered to AVEC, but we do the transfer at San Luis Reservoir. And groundwater, no change in status since we have shut down the wells as of the spring of 2017. Groundwater levels have improved, but they're not back. They're not fully recovered, which is expected to take several years. And again, our wells are being exercised regularly in case we need them as backup. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Hagmark for an update on the desalination project.
So no change in status at this point. Just still contractually, they're in the acceptance testing phase. The contractor is very eager to finish that phase and move on, but we want to make sure that every part of that contractual requirements are met before we release them from that. Prop 1 funding, we did get the latest on that. We did hear from DWR that they're scheduled to let us know about an award announcement has slipped. They're now saying December. I'm holding my breath that it's probably going to be sometime next year, just given how they came to blow through deadlines typically. So if we don't hear something, don't panic yet, but we are watching that, and I'll be sure to get something out once we do hear something back.
Now I'll turn it over to Madeline Ward for an update on the city's water conservation program.
Good morning, members of the Water Commission. My name is Madeline Ward. I'm the Water Conservation Supervisor, and today I'm going to talk to you about our wonderful Garden Wise TV show. This is our long-running sustainable landscaping TV show. It started in 2006 with the Garden Wise Guys and was rebranded in 2011 to a magazine-style format called Garden Wise TV. So this, at this point, we've produced 33 episodes of Garden Wise TV, and it's hosted by Becky Davis of City TV and produced by City TV, along with the County Water Agency, City Water Resources, Goleta Water District, and several other water purveyors. And you can go to the next slide. So our new episode that we're very excited about that is now airing is called Take Your Landscape to the Next Level with Trees. We start off that segment, some of that text got cut off, by showcasing the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden's new WaterWise home demonstration garden. And if you haven't seen this garden, it's really beautiful. I encourage you to check it out. It is brand new. It was put started in late fall and finished up in spring. And we have some great signage there. You can see a little bit of it there in the corner. And it demonstrates the practices done in that garden to collect rainwater, divert gray water, use appropriate plants, and mulch. The next portion is with our very own Kathy Perret, Water Resources Specialist with the city, and she shows you how to best water your trees during drought, and she showcases 3 different methods in which to do that. Next, we have a segment with Oscar Carmona of the Green Gardener program, and he shows you how to better prune specifically fruit trees and smaller trees for better plant health. You might have pest issues, crossed branches, etc., and getting rid of that extra material or dead material can help reduce the water use of that plant. Next, we move on to a design segment, and this is with local landscape architect Billy Goodnick. He's working with a couple clients who just have, the general square of lawn in their backyard, and they're not sure how to reimagine that space so that they can have a usable, functional, and beautiful space. So he shows them a few different design ideas. And we wrap it up with a great segment about the history of dragon trees in Santa Barbara. That specimen right there is at Alameda Park, and Santa Barbara is home to some of the largest dragon trees in the country. And all of those episodes can be found at our website, and they're also on our YouTube channel and airing on local television. Thank you.
That concludes our presentations. We'll take any questions.
Questions or comments? Really? So, Is it bad to say that we don't want this winter to have heavy rains and we'll better see Kachuma perform than if we do have heavy rains?
I think what we're hoping for is gentle rains.
Gentle but long.
Right.
So,
Gentle and steady rain.
Yeah, it's a tough quandary, right? And then, when you mentioned several times reassessment after winter rains, a couple times when we were looking at the color chart. So, is it a good question to ask for a response sometime before May, before winter rains, on what that chart would end up looking like if we had a rainy year similar to last year, but without February 10th weekend, and Northern California had a rainy year similar to 2 years ago. So we'd have a reduction in water coming to us from Northern California, and we had no local water here. It would certainly affect the recharge of our groundwater basin, and I think next year you grow that from nothing to, or 2 years, you grow that significantly from nothing to significant again. So is it too early to talk about what that starts looking like and opining on what other choices are, or is it always an assessment after winter rains?
We've typically done it after winter rains since it's speculative. Right now, what our supply planning is based on is what we think we can count on. We can certainly run a scenario hypothetically saying, what if we get Gibraltar spilling this year? What does our supply mix look like? But it isn't something that we can necessarily count on. So
I guess you're speculating. What is the speculating that you will have average rain, less than average rain, no rain?
Our supply projections assume that little to no rain. So
Okay.
anything
All right.
we don't expect. We're planning for no significant inflows to Gibraltar or Kachuma,
Okay.
which is what we've been experiencing.
I get told at home all the time, I'm cup half empty. So I appreciate that perspective much more. Mr. Keller.
Years ago, we used to contribute money to cloud seeding programs. I haven't heard any mention of that. Is that anything that we have to do with nowadays?
The county is the agency that runs that program, and it has been an ongoing program for many years. This year, they've decided to scale back because of the Whittier fire. We really don't want heavy rains because of the potential for sediment and ash coming into Kachuma. So they will be suspending that program for this year.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilburn.
I had a question about the conservation. We've had pretty high conservation rates last month, which is great, but how does that play into our financial side of things? I know things will probably taper off in the winter because we usually don't get that great of conservation. But.
Well, what's interesting so far is we are coming in right on target with sales, and that's we're taking a look at our model and numbers, but right now we are meeting what we had projected we would bring in, which is confusing, and I agree. But I think part of the challenge is the numbers that we represent are related to production. So unfortunately, that's the most easily available data that we have is the production number. So we're reporting that we're using 45% less water than we did in 2013 we produced. However, that correlation with actual water used in the system, there's system losses that occur, and those have been shrinking. So people may be still using more water, even though our production numbers are down. There's less lost water. We're looking into that, but I think for now we are pleased that we're still coming in because, yes, our model was set around a 30% conservation for the community. So at this point, it is something that we're watching every month and trying to drill down and find out where the discrepancies come in. Certainly something that we think AMI would help to shed some light on because as you all know how our water billing goes, we're reading meters every day, bills are going out every day, so it's really hard to get a snapshot of water usage and line that up with production so that you can actually see where every drop is going. So someday we'll have that information.
I would also add that we didn't anticipate demands to rebound immediately when we were doing our financial planning for rates, and so that did assume a slower rebound in water use than going from 40% immediately to 30%.
Good. All right. Thank you. Move on to your next item, regional agencies update.
Sure, thank you. So this is our monthly update on the 3 agencies that the city is a member of as part of joint powers authorities. And so the first I'll discuss is COME, the Kachuma Operations